Satisfactory is a first-person, open-world factory building game by Coffee Stain Studios. You know, the Goat Simulator guys. And it's one of those games that really grabs you with its mix of automation, exploration, and resource management. Launched in early access way back in March 2019, and since then it's been growing steadily, drawing in players who love a challenge of building massive, efficient production lines. That's just hard to understand why it's so addictive. It sounds like a chore, but it's not. In the game, you play as an employee of Fixit Inc., sent to an alien planet with the goal of creating a gigantic automated factory. But it's not just about mindless building. You're working with a beautifully and carefully handcrafted world that Coffee Stain has paid very close attention to. You'll need to tame this world to make sure you harvest all the required resources from it, and of course, make sure you don't get killed along the way. What's really interesting about Satisfactory is that while it's light on traditional storytelling, there's this clever underlying narrative about corporate exploitation and environmental impact that you sort of pick up on as you play. As you unlock more items and uncover new alien artifacts, you'll be greeted with small voice lines. Satisfactory may lack that traditional cutscene, but it doesn't hinder its ability to tell a story. Then there's the world itself. The design is seriously impressive, with a variety of biomes, towering cliffs, and deep caves to explore, all while you're trying to set up the perfect production line. The game just keeps getting better. Thanks to its early access journey, the developers have been amazing about keeping the community involved. Constantly releasing updates, new features based on feedback. It's no wonder Satisfactory became one of the most successful early access games to date. In this video, we'll be taking a deep dive into everything that makes Satisfactory such a standout game. From its world design and minimalistic storytelling, to its addictive gameplay, early access journey, and its reasons behind its growing success. Let's get straight into why Satisfactory is a video game masterpiece. In Satisfactory, you're going to find yourself resource managing and making automation your key priority. In this massive open world, you'll find yourself building these factories and exploring at the same time, while you suck every bit of valuable resource from this alien world. Satisfactory, developed by Coffee Stain, and for Coffee Stain this was a massive undertaking, especially when compared to their other release games. Their previous games, Goat Simulator back in 2014, and most recent, Midnight Ghost Prop Hunt, a quirky little prop hunt game. Satisfactory was released in 2019 for early access, and has since gained a very dedicated and cult-like fanbase. The game revolves around you, the Pioneer, an employee of Fixit Inc., who's a mega corporation tasked with the job of saving humanity, after some sort of catastrophic event on Earth. We don't exactly know what that is. You're dropped on a planet named Massage 2ABB in the binary star system of Acacia. This large open world is now your playground. As you progress, your friendly AI assistant, Ada, encourages you to continue working, dropping small pieces of story about the fate of the Earth, but never really what actually happened. Was it Fixit's fault? Now, I'll go more in depth with the gameplay a little later in the video, but the game is all about building. Build your main factory, realize you need more resources, venture out to find those resources, and then try and work out how to bring them back to your base. And of course, while you're doing that, you have to make sure you can build your factory without turning into an Italian nonna with a conveyor belt spaghetti. Now that you know what Satisfactory is, let's talk about the world design. Coffee Stain have never created a world on this scale, and they've done a phenomenal job. They've created a range of diverse biomes, all with extremely different and unique characteristics. You've got the lush, grassy plains, the dunes with rivers and trees scattered throughout, the barren northern desert, the towering cliffs, and the list goes on. Each biome comes with its own unique challenges, flora, fauna, and benefits. If you head to your deserts, you'll find a vast and flat land to build your mega factory. But what you'll also find is it's scarce when it comes to resources and plants. But because this is one world, gamers can choose whatever starting spawn they like without any consequences. They'll still be able to explore everything the map has to offer. Because this is an alien planet, the level design artists were able to go crazy when it comes to verticality and the scale of the map. The towering cliffs are multiple hundreds of meters high, and standing at the base of these cliffs make you realize just how small you are as a player on this alien world. Of course, you can build your factories so tall to tower over these cliffs and become the ruler, but let's save that for the end game. But that's not all. Further exploring the world, you'll find yourself delving into caves. And if you're not a fan of spiders, you might not want to go down here. Unless, of course, you enable arachnophobia mode, then I hope you're just not allergic to cats. This verticality separates it from Factorio, which is Satisfactory's closest competitor, since that's a top-down 2D factory builder. While you explore the world, you'll find yourself interacting and destroying a fair bit of nature as you disrupt the natural order of this planet. But don't think you're just going to plow through nature as you slowly concrete over everything that's green. You'll find that nature isn't exactly keen on that plan. You'll find yourself fighting fauna like the fluffy-tailed hog that will try and ram you, the spitter that spits energy beams at you, and the flies that pop out of their nest and charge at you. And stingers, which are the most terrifying spider creature I have ever seen. I much prefer the lolcats. If that wasn't bad enough, you'll find some plants that aren't exactly happy you're there either. And as you venture out, you're going to explore more of the map, and you'll find the world doesn't seem forced. The locations of resource nodes don't seem like they've been forced, and landmarks aren't entirely natural. You're not going to find some random alien village that seems like it's been placed there for the sake of adding some buildings. The idea of having this natural and untouched world makes everything flow. Satisfactory has a super subtle day-night cycle, which doesn't really do much, but you can look at the planets, and it is a lot more terrifying hearing the spiders run around at night. Satisfactory employs a very laid-back and passive storytelling. It doesn't give you quests to do or story-specific objectives. You'll just receive a few voice lines as you play through, which will help you build your idea of the lore. So let's go over that narrative backdrop. You're an employee of Fix-It, a mega corporation tasked with the job of saving humanity. You've been tasked with Project Assembly, which will see you sinking an ungodly amount of resources into this massive structure known as the Space Elevator, slowly building this space station-like structure. As you unlock more parts, send more resources to space, and explore the planet discovering alien items, you'll receive more information about the fate of planet Earth and the history of Massage to ABB. Satisfactory's minimalist approach to storytelling allows players to take the game at their own pace, allowing to complete the game in any order they feel like, without missing on lore that other players might have received. They just need to complete those same milestones. It doesn't matter when they do it, and the lack of cutscenes is almost freeing. You're always in control of the character, and there's nothing to distract you from completing your factories and making your employer happy, which is exactly how they like it. Without cutscenes and only vaguely answering questions about the universe, players are able to come up with their own theories. Who inhabited the planet? What happened to Earth? Is Fix-It really a good company? And many more questions will get answered along the way by Ada, as she informs you about the planet as her databank grows. Ada isn't just an AI that spews information at you, she's also a product of Fix-It, and that comes across in her personality. Coffee Stain took every chance they had to have a satirical take on corporate exploitation and consumerism. My personal favourite is this line here.
You earned a micro break. And welcome back. I hope you feel refreshed.
While Ada is the AI that helps you, the satirical jokes about employee exploitation make sure the player gets a few laughs in between creating their factories. Coffee Stain giving Ada a personality that is fun and enjoyable makes players want to continue researching and discovering new technologies, so they get to hear what else she has to say. The inclusion of these lines also makes Satisfactory relatable to the player, who can see these themes in our own world. One final thing about the story that Satisfactory does perfectly is the world building through exploration. In order to complete Satisfactory, you have to explore to find resources. But doing this, Coffee Stain encourages players to look for secrets and investigate the world as they explore. They're not relying on objective markers that can be speed ran and completed all within the starting area. Alien relics are hiding around the map that provide the player with a sense of intrigue, and even more when Ada analyzes these objects and tells the player more about them. The more alien artifacts the player finds, the more they find out about the history of Massage to ABB, allowing the player to build the world themselves. not just be locked to a linear path. Satisfactory's gameplay loop from the outside seems like it's boring and nothing special. Gather resources, make a factory, automate production. But the way the game makes this so satisfying to complete a project and watch everything be automated, watching your resources on conveyor belts go from one machine to another, and watching the final product make its way into the storage container. There's no wrong way to build a factory. It's up to you to decide how you want to plan each one out. Is it a modular factory? A mega factory, a vertical one, a horizontal one, or just a complete mess of spaghetti? There's no right or wrong way, which is what players love so much about Satisfactory. These complex pipelines, conveyor belts, and logistics really get the player thinking, especially when you're working on an extremely complex part that requires multiple levels of production or non-round numbers. Doing the math to make everything 100% efficient is one of the most challenging things about Satisfactory. But once you've worked it out, there's no better feeling. Satisfactory also gives the player a clear progression without making it linear. You've got the hub, which allows you to unlock new technologies and upgrades for your factories by using the resources your factories produce, allowing you to unlock trains, faster conveyors, new machines, and a heap more. Then you've got the space elevator, which requires space elevator specific parts, and these specific parts to the space elevator have no use in crafting. They only craft other space elevator parts. So you're basically just burning resources for progression. This method of progression allows it to be meaningful, and unlocking a new factory part simply by playing the game without needing to go out of your way for a specific purpose, until you complete all the hub upgrades and you need to do the space elevator. But then there's also the MAM, which again uses resources to research more crafting recipes and buildings that you can have around your factory. But these are usually upgrades and not something you absolutely have to complete the progress of the game. The MAM rewards exploration without the need of automation sometimes, as some of the objectives in the MAM only require a small amount of resources, meaning you're able to explore and quickly bring back a few items before you discover what you actually do with those new items. Unlocking all of these new things and progressing through the game is what gives Satisfactory its main challenge. You aren't able to craft everything by hand, and some things have to be crafted with a machine, which means it's your job to create an efficient factory that can produce all of the items you need in a timely fashion. The other challenge that Satisfactory brings to the table is the hostile elements. You'll be fighting with limited weaponry. You've got a taser, a bigger taser, basically a nail gun, and a rifle. There's no defenses that you can set up, and when you're fighting larger enemies known as alphas, you can be very quickly outmatched. When exploring for more resources, you'll need to manage your health with very limited healing items you have access to in the early game, and defend yourself from flora and fauna with a tiny little taser. Then, once you do eventually find your resources, you'll need to work out a way to get them back to your base, which usually ends up in a very, very long conveyor belt. Until you unlock trains at least. And finally, no game like this would be complete without co-op. Satisfactory's co-op system works great. You'll be able to seamlessly drop in and out of co-op with your friends over Steam or Epic. You can host a dedicated server so it can run 24/7 without requiring the host to be online, and the server setup is really easy. Like, a few buttons easy. And that's always a good thing, especially coming from someone who had to set up Minecraft servers. Those are a pain. Co-op being so easy means playing with your friends isn't a chore. You can just decide to play together, and you'll have a world going in a matter of seconds. When looking at the success of Satisfactory, it's important to see the journey that Satisfactory took through early access. Satisfactory 0.1 launched back in March of 2019. It was extremely simple, basic tier 1 recipes and conveyor belts. There weren't even conveyor lifts until the end of May 2019. The most important thing about Satisfactory's growth through early access was Coffee Stain's transparency. They updated the community with devlogs, update trailers, update videos, roadmap, and feedback updates, making sure the community knew what they were fixing and accepting the feedback from players for the game. Throughout their update videos, they also responded to feedback. One of the most requested things was base defenses, and Coffee Stain came out very early and said that they wouldn't be adding it, since it wasn't the direction they wanted the game to go in. Other than all the new items they added quality of life improvements that just made the game more fun to play. Some of these features I use now and wouldn't have been able to live without. Even simple things like copy and pasting machine settings, the blueprint maker, being able to build up to 10 foundations at once with Zoop, or even something as simple as snapping buildings to the world grid or lining them up together. These quality of life improvements kept players in the game because they felt like they were being heard when suggesting these things that made some of the more tedious mechanics, like placing 1,000 foundations, a little bit easier. This was paramount to shaping Satisfactory to be the game it is today. This community involvement allowed all kinds of players to have their input in the game, not just the professionals or the top of the top. Coffee Stain community managers even admitting that they would never have thought of some of these quality of life improvements that some players suggested. So who knows what kind of features never would have made it into the main game if this early access journey didn't focus so heavily on that community feedback. When Satisfactory finally exited early access, Coffee Stain did a dev stream, counting down to version 1.0. The stream peaked at 90,000 viewers, and when the game's update finally dropped, it quickly reached 150,000 players, and peaking at 180,000 players later in the week. Before 1.0, Satisfactory's top player count was about 30,000 players. So this was a massive success for Coffee Stain and Satisfactory. Its presence on both Steam and the Epic storefronts allowed it not to be limited by only being on one store, so gamers could pick it up on their preferred store. And as mentioned before, this doesn't have any impact on co-op. You can still play with your friends regardless of what storefront they purchased the game on. As with any successful sandbox game, the modding community came out in waves. Modders have added crazy new buildings, items, signs, machines, and even more quality of life improvements for gamers and even content creators that allowed them to set the time of day, tick speeds, movement speeds, fly. The modding community behind Satisfactory do their best to make sure mods are compatible with each update, as each early access update breaks mod support. And with 1.0, it broke again. At the time of filming this, 1.0 mods still don't work, but they said to keep an eye on their Discord for when it is. I'd love to see mod support come to servers now that they're fully supported and no longer considered experimental. The mods made by the community not only increase the replayability of Satisfactory, it also opens the game up to more players. With some machines helping them get through more difficult portions of the game, it allows people who may not be able to focus for those long periods of time cheat mods that allow you to overclock machines to custom rates to make them work faster. And that allows those players to make smaller factories that are just as efficient as a mega one. These mods are incredibly important for accessibility and reaching more players. It will be super interesting to see how far modding is able to push Satisfactory, especially when users are able to create more advanced mods, or maybe even entirely new maps. Satisfactory's success has also influenced a new factory builder that is fairly similar. It's named Foundry, which entered early access a few months ago. Satisfactory joins games like Factorio and the Dyson Sphere program in resource management and factory building, but Satisfactory was the one who did it in a 3D space, with extreme verticality, which allowed it to set it apart from the others in the genre. Satisfactory has proven to be a masterclass in video game design. The journey that Satisfactory and Coffee Stain took through the early access is a tribute to their work. The community support surrounding the production allowed Satisfactory's final product to be a phenomenal success with both critics and gamers alike. Now that 1.0 is out, I'm sure Coffee Stain has more updates up their sleeve for the future of Satisfactory. But the question is, have you been playing Satisfactory?